Welcome back everyone to the Fusion 360 tutorials. In this tutorial we are going to learn how to use the feature patterns, the circular pattern, rectangular pattern, and the mirroring feature. In addition to that, we will also learn how to create section views. So the first thing we want to do is we want to open up our previous exercise of our pencil holder, and we are going to start making modifications to our holder. Our first modification we're going to make is to put a cap or a cover on our cylindrical feature here. So I'm going to go up and use my create sketch, select this top surface. This is a surface we want to sketch on, and then I'm going to draw a circle. I want to make sure they are concentric, so I want my sketch to be snapping to the center there, and I will draw that roughly, and I'm going to use my equal constraint to make this circle equal to the outside diameter of this circle. That way we don't have to add in any dimensions, and that will constrain our sketch. So I will finish our sketch, and then I can use our extrude and select that surface. Now it is going to select just the inner surface, so we want to make sure that we get the outer surface. That's just going to select the inner. This is going to select the outer. So we want to make sure we get the outer and select the inner together. And we can pull that up, and we're going to select a distance of 0.06, similar to the wall thickness of our previous parts. The next feature we're going to add is the holes in top to hold our pens or pencils. So we're going to create a sketch, and we're going to sketch on this surface here. And to locate our holes, we're going to be offsetting the holes slightly from the center. So we're going to have to use some construction lines again. So I'm roughly going to draw a line from there to there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to constrain that now. I want the end of that line constrained to the center of the circle. And then I would like to trim this. But if I go to trim that, it does actually select the outside of the edge there. If it did not select that edge by default, you may have to use your projection again, shortcut P, to project that surface so you can trim it. Sometimes the software does not detect that, but in this case it did. And what I want to do now is I want to right click on this, because this is going to be a construction line, not an object line. And I don't want Fusion 360 to recognize that as an object line, so I want to select the construction line, and you can see that line is dotted on there. So we know that is a construction line. It's hard to see right now. And in order to, we could rotate this construction line around. We want to constrain that. So we want to put an angle in there, but we are going to need a reference to put an angle in there. So I'm going to use the project command again, shortcut P, or under the create menu, project include. That's just going to project a plane or an object onto our sketching plane that we are using. So use the project command, and if I hover over these, I can see which one I want. I can use the YZ plane. I could also use the Y axis. Either one is fine, and it's always good to use your default planes and axes. So I do have that plane in there now. I can use that as a reference, and I'm going to put an angle dimension in there and dimension that at 22.5 degrees. So we have a fully constrained construction line, constrained to the center there, to the outside there, and to an angle. We're going to need one more construction line to locate the hole. So I'm going to use our circle command again. Make sure it constrained to the center. Again, we want it constrained there and concentric. Select our dimension command, and we're going to put a diameter value in there of 1.88. And once again, we want this to be changed to a construction line. So going to select that line, right click, and change that to a construction line, and it is black, so we know that is constrained as well. So now we have an intersection point that we can use for our first circle. or our first hole that we're going to put in there. So I'm going to select the circle command. It's going to snap to that intersection, and I'm going to add a dimension of that of 0.38 to that diameter, and we are done for that profile or that sketch, and we can select finish sketch and just go to the isometric view so you can see that. The next thing I want to do is extrude that hole. So when I go up to my extrude command and I select that, it will select that circular feature. If these were not construction lines, it may select just the individual quadrants there. Because we did use construction lines, it does not recognize those as part of our profile sketch, really. So select that hole there, and I want to go this way, and it's got a cut in there already, and I want to go to the next surface. So instead of selecting distance, I want to go to the next, the bottom of that top cap, and so I'm going to select to object. And you can see that it does not allow me to select that surface that we can't see. So what we have to do is hold down the left mouse button, and it brings up a dialog box where I can select some different faces. So if I drag through here, I can see some faces that it's going to allow me to select. I don't want that first one. That's the bottom one. That's the face I want. So I'm going to select that and select OK, and we can see our hole is in there. So we do not want to create that process for each one of these holes. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a feature called patterning. So we're going to go up to our create menu, and down when we get scrolling through here, you're going to come down to pattern. We have an option: rectangular pattern, circular pattern, pattern on path, and geometric pattern. In this case, we're going to select a circular pattern, kind of like the image shows there. So select circular pattern, and what it's asking us is what do we want to select? I want to select this and select a feature, because we made a whole feature, and then I can scroll in there, zoom in there, and select that. And what it's asking me is for an axis. It doesn't know if I'm done selecting the features yet, because I may want to pattern more than one item. We only have one item, so we're going to have to manually select this option for the axis. So we have to find something that we want this to rotate about. So because we started this off on our very first feature on this model, at the origin point, we know that we have an axis that runs right up through the middle of there, and you can see them. If you scroll in there, you can see the axis in there. We could also, again, go through here and highlight them, hover over them, and we can see that we want it rotated around the Z-axis. So if I select the Z-axis, I have some options here. Our quantity, I could change my quantity to 10. I'm going to leave that at 8, and we could actually select an angle. So if I only wanted that to go 180 degrees or 210 degrees, we have that option as well too. In this case, we're going to select full, and we're going to use quantity 8. And we do have options down here. For this instance, any one of these would be fine. Typically, in most cases, optimize is fine, or identical. Adjust is very rarely used. We can use any one for this case. So select that. We have a total of 8 now, and select the OK button, and now we can see that we have a nice pattern of holes in there. So that was our circular pattern feature. Now I've got some more space in here that I could add some more holes. I could do another circular pattern. Going to change it up a little bit and do a rectangular pattern in there. So I'm going to go up to my sketch command again, select that top surface, and I'm going to select or create another hole there. And because I want these holes the same size, I'm going to select my equal constraint, select equal, and I could select any one of these holes. And now my diameter is fixed in there. I don't have to go add in another dimension. Because we're working in a 2D plane here, I do need to dimension this or constrain it horizontally and vertically. it moves vertically and horizontally. So that's not supposed to happen. So I need to constrain that in both directions. So once again, I'm going to use my project command shortcut P, and I'm going to select some axes or planes here for me to use as reference. So I'm going to use that to constrain it horizontally, and I'm going to use my XZ plane to constrain it vertically. I have access to those now. They're on my sketching plane, so I can go add some dimensions onto there. And I'll place my first dimension on here, and I'll put a value of 0.30 in there. And for the horizontal dimension, I'm going to place a value in there of 0.3 as well. Sketch is constrained. The outline is black, so we can finish our sketch. And now we are going to extrude that through, just like we did on our previous hole. Select the extrude command, select that feature or that set profile there, and we're going to go this way, and we want to select again to an object. Left click on that surface and scroll through there until we see the face we want. That's the face we want. Select OK. And now we have an additional hole in there. To add the additional holes from the hole we just created, we're going to use a rectangular pattern instead. So you probably have the rectangular pattern option in here in your toolbar. If not, you can go down to your pattern down here and select your rectangular pattern there as well. So select rectangular pattern, and once again it's going to ask us what objects we want to select. And I don't want to use face. I typically, if I'm patterning a feature, I want to use a feature, use the feature, so it just picks up features, and it has selected that feature now. So I have the correct feature. Just going to look at this orthographically. So now directions. I have to select which directions. It can be multiple directions or one direction. As soon as I select directions, this you can see the planes, default planes pop up. I'm going to select one of those. It doesn't matter which one I select. Once I select that, I will see arrows pop up here. So I want to go in two directions. So I'm just going to drag this arrow over there, and I'm going to drag that arrow over there. That's obviously not what we want. We see lots of circles there, and they're overlapping. So what I want to do is I want to make some adjustments here. So my quantity. Here's my quantity of my holes in one direction. So I'm going to put 2. So that's going to put my only 2 holes in horizontally like this. And in the other direction that I selected, I'm going to change that to 2 as well. I have some options here for my distance. I'm going to put a value in there of -0.6 for both of those. And maybe it's positive 0.6, and 0.6 is in that direction as well too. Under the distance type here, this is the extent. So we can select the extent. So it's going to put two circles in that within 0.6 inches. So if I put 5, if I change this to 5 circles, it puts 5 within that distance of 0.6. If I change this to spacing, that is going to change my spacing. That would be the spacing between each of these holes. So it's going to still put 2 holes in. If I put 3, or if I change this to 5, now it's going to change to 5 with a spacing of 0.6. So the difference there is that with the spacing, you select the spacing between your objects or your holes. If I select the extent, it's going to put the number of holes within this distance that you select. So I'm going to leave mine at spacing, keep that at 0.6. Everything looks good. And again, I'll leave this, I'll change this to optimize. Doesn't matter in this case. Select OK. And when that is done, we will see that we now have the additional holes in there. The last feature we're going to learn in this tutorial is the mirror feature. So I'm going to create just something on the edge here, maybe something to hold business card, bank card, membership or whatever you might want to fit in there. So I want to sketch something on the middle, halfway between this plane and the bottom surface. So if you remember from previous videos, we can use our datum features. I'm going to select my mid plane. So this is going to create a plane between two surfaces. So I'm going to select that top surface and that bottom surface. And you can see it's added that plane right between the top and the bottom, and that's the plane I'm going to sketch on. This is using my design intent. I could have used sketch on this surface and use some features in the extrusion command to start it halfway down, somewhere like that. But really what I want to convey is that what I'm going to build here is always halfway in between there. So that's incorporating design intent into your model. In case somebody changed the thickness or the height of this, if I did it the other way, then I would never always maintain the center in this like I am doing now by creating a plane in the center. So I'm going to create a sketch on here on that plane, and now looking at that orthographically. I do want to use this edge as a reference. I'm not sure if Fusion is going to pick that up, so I am going to project that edge. Use my project command, shortcut P, and I'm going to select that surface so I know that it is available for me to reference. Select OK, and now I'm going to sketch a rectangle on here. Just rough sketch. I'm going to add some dimensions onto that. Put a value of vertical dimension of 2.25 inches on there. Put a horizontal dimension of 0.13 inches, and you can see it's not fully constrained because I can move this up and down. I haven't provided a vertical locator dimension on this, so I will add that dimension onto there, value of 1.0. So that sketch is constrained, what I have so far. What I want to model or sketch in here now is not a full rectangle, just something that's going to create an opening in here against this surface. So I'm going to use my offset command. So when I use my offset command, by default you might have chain selection on. So if I use chain selection, it's going to select that whole rectangle. I don't want that whole rectangle selected. I just want to select individual items. So I'm going to select that line, top line, and the bottom line, and then I'm going to put a value in there of 0.06, and that creates a nice closed profile and fully constrained. Finish my sketch. Now I want to extrude that, so I go select my extrude, and I'm going to select that profile. And what I want here is I'm going to use a distance. I'm going to put a value in there of 0.5. I want it to be symmetrical. So I want it to go, as you can see now, it's just going up. I want it to be symmetrical. But now that's putting it to 0.5 up and 0.5 down. But I want my 0.5 to be the total. So I'm going to select the whole length. And now that is exactly what I want. So I'm going to select the OK button. And that feature is now complete. So what I want to do is duplicate that onto this side. So as opposed to going through that process again, we're going to select the mirror command. So under the create menu, I'm going to go to the mirror command. And what that's going to do is going to create a mirror image of a feature that I just created. So select the mirror command. Again, my type, I have my options up there. Right now, I'm going to leave that at features, and asking me to select my objects. I can select it there, or I could select it down in the timeline as well too. I could select it there. I'll select that, and now it's asking, now I need to select a mirror plane, something that I'm going to mirror this about. So it's like a center line. It's going to be the equal distance on each side of that plane. So because I've made this symmetrical on the default planes from the beginning, I can once again use those default plane. So when I use select the select option, I can select that plane that is right in the middle, or I could select it from the Explorer bar. I'll just select it there, select OK, and now that is duplicated on both sides. So we have learnt the circular pattern, the rectangular pattern, as well as the mirroring options in Fusion 360. We want to save our file now. We've completed that, made all our modifications, and now we're going to add, make some changes to our drawing. So we're going to have to go open up our previously made drawing from our pencil holder. I've retrieved my pencil holder drawing, and you will see that you'll notice that some of those modifications, or all those modifications, have not been reflected in the drawing. But you will notice we do have an alert up here. The yellow triangle means that this drawing has not been updated to the current model changes. So we're going to select that button, and that will update our drawing to include all the modifications. So now, once it's updated, you will see the holes have been added, and there is also the side part that we added on there as well too. If you happen to notice, there is another alert icon in there. So something has gone wrong there. So if I do select that, it will tell me what has, where the issue is. And what has happened, and this will happen, this will show up if you've referenced something in a drawing and then you've gone back into the model and you've removed that or deleted it. This tells me that that geometry that you were referencing is no longer there. So I have some options. I can delete this and re-add it, or I can reassociate it. Reassociate it means tell the software what the new reference is. So I'm going to select reassociate, and I'm going to select this outside diameter, and that is all fixed up. So everything looks good, but I did lose a couple dimensions in those modifications somewhere. So I'm going to add those back in, my outside diameter of 2.5, and I also lost my vertical height on this. So I'm going to go back in and add that dimension on here as well too. Select those two surfaces, and there we go. So everything looks good so far. Now what we want to go do is we want to put a section view in here. So that's the last thing we want to do here is put a section view, and my section view is actually going to replace this view here. So my section view will give me a little better detail of what's going on, and I can still use all these same dimensions. What I'm going to do is move this just off to the side here so I can use that as a reference so I don't forget to put any of those dimensions on there. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a view. So I have some up in my tool or my view options up here. My section view is there, or I could right click on here and create a section view using the dialog box there as well too. So I'm going to select my section view, and if I hover over my drawing somewhere, it says select parent view, and I want to put a section looking at it through this way. So a section is going to cut it right through, so I can see some material thicknesses in there, etc. Get a better view of what's inside of that. So I'm going to select this as my parent view. And now it's asking me to specify a start point of the section line. It's going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to click on that so it'll kind of snap to that and drag it down, so I can kind of keep that in line. Select that, and then it's asking me for my next point. So I'm going to select up there somewhere. And from there I can right click and select continue. And I can now select which side of that section view I want. If I put it over there, it's going to do a section. You'll see how the arrows change, and on my section line that I just drew there. And I'm going to use that view this side here. So it's very similar to this one. So I'm just actually replacing that view there. And I don't want to show hidden edges in a section view, and that is turned off. Keeping the same scale, I could change my section name. Section depth is full. That's fine. I do have some options under there. So I will just keep it full and select OK. And now I have my section view completed. And if I want to move that, remember, break that dependency, I'm going to hit my Shift key and release that. And I'm going to move it up there approximately and move this text up there. I can delete my right side view because now my section view actually indicates that that is where I'm looking. And now I can just go add these dimensions back in here, just like we did previously, so we don't lose any of those dimensions. I'm not going to add them all in there for this video, but we do still have to, and once I'm done adding those dimensions, I'm going to select this view and select delete, and select delete a window around there and delete all those as well too. So we don't want to keep that view. And now what we do have to do is we do have to dimension these other features that we just added. So we're going to have to find the best views to add those in, but we do need to put center lines in here. So we're going to go up and we can use our center mark pattern. So we don't have to select every circle. So going to select center mark pattern, and it's asking me to select a whole or rounded edge, and I'm going to hover over that, and once I select that, it automatically detects all those, and I can select OK. So we just have to add the remaining circles or center lines for these circles. We will do these manually. This is not, if I do select this pattern, it is going to put those as if they were in a circular pattern like those ones, and they are not. These are actually vertical and horizontal. So we're just going to put these in manually, select each one, because they are not like a bolt circle diameter pattern. Now we can go in and add all those center lines in here. We would end up with a bunch of vertical lines, and it would actually probably make the drawing more confusing. So you may not necessarily want to do that. Remember, the objective is to make sure that our drawing is clear as possible, and I think that would add a lot of confusion. So we are going to have to add these dimensions on these circles. So we can start by adding our diameter of our circle, and we'll put 0.38, and we can actually add some text in there. We don't want to put that diameter in there for all those holes, so we just want to edit this text. So we do have 12 holes in there, so I'm going to select that text, move my cursor to the end, and I'm going to hit the Alt-Enter key. And that will allow me to put some extra text in there, and I can type in there PLCS period. That will indicate 12 places, or I could put TYP, which would indicate typical. Since these are the only holes in this situation, that would be fine. 12 typical or typical. We don't need the 12 in there. Just put typical in there, and that is fine. Or we could have put it at the end of the text as well too. So we will select close. Then we need to add some other dimensions in there. We need our bolt circle diameter dimension in there as well. So we would put diameter 1.88, and we should edit that text too to indicate that it is a bolt circle diameter. So short form for that is BCD. Some people put B period, C period, D period. BCD is fine. Select close. Now we just have to indicate some of the vertical dimensions on there, or other vertical dimensions, and the angle of this first hole. Remember, that one was 22.5 degrees, so we should put that angle in there as well. Now that we have 22.5 degrees and we have 8 holes in there, that will automatically, somebody will be able to understand exactly that that is equally spaced. So we just need our vertical and horizontal dimensions on there, and put some of those, put our vertical dimension in there, and now we need a horizontal dimension on there to this hole, and 0.3. That looks okay. Could line these up possibly like that to make it look a little better. So I think we have all our dimensions on there that we need. So we have our section view. We have all our center lines. We've added these dimensions in here, but we still have to dimension this additional feature in there that we put on the side. So we can add those dimensions on there, put a horizontal dimension on there, and it should be in line with this dimension as well. Make sure we stick with conventional drafting standards. So we do have to move this dimension so it is in line with that dimension there. And we need to identify the thickness on here as well. Put that thickness on there, and we can line that up with that other dimension, and we would have to add the length dimension on there. We might want to put that in another view. No, we can't see that in another view. So we'll add that length dimension on here, 2.25 inches. And the last thing we need to do is add that height dimension on there. It is in the center, so we could put a center line through there indicating that this is symmetrical. We do have to add this 0.5 height on there, as well as add the height from the bottom to there. Now we didn't add that in there. We didn't add that vertical height in there. It was symmetrical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose that option to put a center line in there, which indicates symmetry, and then I'll just extend that line through there. So the reader should understand that that is symmetrical about that line. So it is interpreted as being in the center. So once all your modifications have been made, your drawing should look something like this. The one thing you might want to do is to change your hatching pattern. If you do zoom in on this, and you can double click on your pattern, and it will bring up a dialog box so that you can change the scale factor. If I wanted to change this, say, down to 0.75, it's going to change the spacing on those lines, and I could also change the pattern as well too, depending on the materials, but the default is fine. The angles are fine as is. So that's the end of this tutorial. So we have learned how to do the mirror feature, circular pattern, rectangular pattern, and section views.